Perfect. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Tim Hayes, and I am the Upper Bucks County Field Coordinator for Conservation Voters of PA, calling in from Dublin Borough. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for this virtual meet and greet with newly elected State Representative Tim Brennan. Representative Brennan was elected to office back in November and was sworn in January. He represents the 29th State House District, which is comprised of the townships of Doylestown, Buckingham, and Slowbury, and the boroughs of Doylestown, New Britain, Chalfont, and New Hope. We have some amazing co-sponsors for tonight's event, and I just wanted to give them a couple minutes to introduce themselves and their organizations. So first, I would like to introduce Michael Marazar, campaign manager with PennFuture.
Thanks, Tim, and good evening, everyone. So PennFuture is a statewide environmental advocacy organization that works across the state to ensure that every Pennsylvanian has access to clean air, pure water, and a healthy climate. PennFuture has three main components to our work. We have a great legal team that reviews regulation, submits public comments, and when necessary, engages in litigation to protect our environmental rights. We have a policy team that evaluates everything from energy development to agriculture runoff and identifies the best approaches that we can take to protect both our environment and everyday people. We also have a full-time lobbyist in Harrisburg that makes sure we uplift the positive environmental laws and stop bad bills that would damage our environment. Last but not least, we have our incredible outreach work. We recognize that without grassroots support, we'll never be able to achieve our mission. That is why we're so happy to sponsor tonight's event with Representative Brennan, and I'm really looking forward to tonight's conversation. You can learn more about PennFuture at pennfuture.org. Thank you.
Cool, thanks, Michael. So next up, I'd like to introduce Ashley Deemer, who is the Deputy Field Director for PennEnvironment. Go ahead, Ashley.
Well, thanks so much for having me. Again, my name is Ashley Deemer. I'm the Deputy Director of PennEnvironment, and many of you know us well, but PennEnvironment is a statewide environmental advocacy group, and we work to protect our air, our water, our climate, and beautiful natural places across Pennsylvania. We do research, we do public education, build coalitions, and engage the public in opportunities to connect with their decision makers, like tonight. We have staff in Pittsburgh, where I'm based, and in Philadelphia, doing work on a variety of campaigns to transition Pennsylvania to renewable energy, ban single-use plastics, get the lead out of school drinking water, and more. And I don't need to tell the folks on this call that we just have so much work to do in Pennsylvania on all of these issues. And that's why I'm really excited to be here tonight and get to know Representative Brennan and over the course of this session, get to know his colleagues making up the new majority in the State House. So I'll keep it short and leave it there, but thank you, Representative Brennan, and all of you for being here tonight.
Awesome, thanks, Ashley. So next up is Doug Dolan, the Executive Director of Delaware Canal 21.
Thank you. I want to thank Representative Tim Brennan for taking time out to listen to us and hear us today. I'm Doug Dolan, Executive Director of Delaware Canal 21, a relatively younger organization here that's interested in working on our historic Delaware Canal and bringing it into the 21st century. And it's interesting because the Delaware Canal has gone from a commercial legacy and story, historical landmark in the 19th century to today, where it is one of the most extraordinary state parks in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's also the gateway to Pennsylvania, an integral part of the East Coast Greenway, and it serves a whole host of audiences in a variety of different ways, ranging from recreational, historical, to natural environmental issues and things like that. So it is serving a new life in the 21st century. We're trying to help it develop a new paradigm for its care and feeding. And if you want to learn more about what we're doing, please check our website at delawarecanal21.org. Again, thanks, Tim, and thank you, Tim Brennan, for having us.
Awesome, thanks, Doug. So next up is Michael Selleck with the Bucks County Audubon Society.
Thank you, Tim Hayes, and certainly thank you, Representative Brennan. Welcome. I'm even newer than you are. My name is Michael Selleck. I started in January as executive director of Bucks County Audubon Society, which is in New Hope or Solebury, depending on if you go by the mailing address or the jurisdiction. You can visit us at bcas.org. We have 7 miles of beautiful trails that are extremely rich in plant and animal life. The trails are open every single day to the public from dawn till dusk. In the summer, we offer camp for young people, which involves quite a bit of environmental education. So we start camp in June, and we are currently hiring for camp staff. So if you or someone you know needs a summer job, loves the outdoors, you can visit our website. We are hiring right now for that. We also have an Earth Day celebration, which is free to the public, coming up on April 15th. It has lots of, for Earth Day, we do lots of educational sessions, lots of other great things happening and vendors there. That happens starting at 10 a.m. on April 15th, which is, of course, a week before the official Earth Day, April 22nd. So you can do a whole extra week of Earth Day if you want to. In addition to education and programming, we can help advise you if you have bees in your yard, or if you want to know what native plants to plant on your property, things like that. We can act as a resource to consult you on how to handle birds that you want or don't want, or plants or anything else like that. Thanks for the opportunity. Looking forward to working with some of you who I have not yet met and will soon be meeting. You can visit us again at bcas.org. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks, Michael. Next is Francis Collins with the Primrose Creek Watershed Association.
Hello, Representative Brennan and Michael Selleck. A shout out to you. I used to work as a naturalist at Audubon, so I know your place as well, and I give you a thumbs up for the job that you've been doing. I am the president of the Watershed that is just down the road from Audubon, and that's the Primrose Creek. And our website is primrosewatershed.org, primrosewatershed.org. Anything that I don't say is on that website. So I would say to everyone, visit that website and you'll see what we call our watershed implementation plan in detail, which I believe the value of it is it's transferable. And that's something we all have to do. I see that the representative is from Pottsville and is obviously very familiar with the environmental challenges to water quality in Pottsville. My mom grew up in Tamaqua, and a little bit to the east of it in a small town called Coaldale. And we know the kind of roots that you have, Representative, and you also, I know, have probably a vast knowledge, boots, really acid mining boots on the ground, something that we're lucky not to have, but we have challenges down here too. So geographically, our little Primrose Creek is smack dab in the middle of your jurisdiction. If you were to go to the township building in Solebury, the source of our creek is there, and it runs down, right down the Palisade, through Solebury School, through a quarry, through wetlands which are endangered, and down through an artist colony near the hairiest hairpin turn on River Road, which is a Phillips mill, and it also is one of our monitoring sites on the creek. Tim has been amazing in getting us connected to the local influencers in the area. And I just want to give him a shout out. Thank you so much, because we've been recognized by the Environmental Action Committee at Solebury, and we've drawn together with other watersheds close near us to share best practices. So I think this is a great way, specifically in a clockwise position. We're north of New Hope, that's the mouth of our creek. And then we have the Aquaton, which runs right through the middle of New Hope. And then farther down, we go all the way down to Bowman's Tower, where the Pidcock Creek is. Beautiful creek coming down through the Bowman's Wildflower Reserve. If you go to the west, behind us, you run into Lahaska and the limestone creek that they have. We have people on the board that actually live in there, live and watch that creek too. So we have a lot of eyes on the creeks. There's one last segment, and that is from Carversville down to Lumberville, in one of the most picturesque walks you could ever take down Fleecy Dale Road. But it's also one of the most it's the poster child for what we need help with. And that is the brutal erosional destruction that supercell storms are doing to the Palisade side. And I consider our creek Palisade side. It's not as drastic as the Panacussing, which is the one that goes from Carversville down to Lumberville. But that walk will show you in a nutshell the erosional challenges that climate change is affecting roads that are state roads that are being shut down. And how was that? And I know it impacts the DC 21 folks because guess where everything is running right up to? The infrastructure of all of the Delaware Canal, but the state highway too. So we have a lot of interactive county, local, township, state. We're dead center in the poster child. I didn't even mention Solbury School and the limestone issue that they have, but I didn't want this all to be about our problems. We have good people that are working hard and hard to do what we can do. In April 15th, which is the same one Mike just said, a week before Earth Day, we're doing our phase 2 of what we call the Solbury Arboretum, which is a riparian planting in a area about a little more than a quarter, almost a half acre plot. And this will be the second one that we're putting in. And it's essentially what we can do to cut erosion further down. And we happen to be on limestone there. So there is a tremendous amount of danger from limestone that is on that school property. Anyway, thank you for coming. And I know I'd like to hear your comments about your boyhood walking around those big, the hilltop, right?
I was a little bit of both, but I did do quite a bit of walking around and in the woods. So, but I will tell you that I was appointed to appropriations, and we had the DEP secretary testify before us, I believe this past week, and I talked to him about my concerns about staffing, which I mean, there's 47 new positions. DEP still doesn't have anywhere near the resources it needs to do what it's supposed to. But I also did talk to him about the Solbury School and the quarry that I guess the watershed.
We're part of that. We're having a meeting with the Senator Santosorino very soon about exactly what you're saying. I think that the DEP is shorthanded, or they're 4 years behind on the plan to restore what should have been done once the quarry closed. Anyway, I don't want to take any more of this meeting's time, but Tim's good man with boots on the road, So Tim, I'll see you there April 15th, right?
Yeah, I'll be there. Thanks. I really appreciate it. Thank you. We'll definitely continue this conversation in the Q&A portion. I really appreciate you introducing Primrose and everything. So we have 2 more co-sponsors whose representatives could unfortunately not be here tonight. First is the Spring Creek Farm, which is based out of New Hope, which is a community-supported agriculture site, which is also powered 100% by renewable energy. They do a lot of great work and has an absolutely beautiful landscape. They're very passionate about sustainable agriculture and renewable energy sources, so I would definitely recommend checking them out. And this event is also co-sponsored by Bucks Environmental Action, which is a coalition of Bucks County citizens and organizations dedicated to environmental and social justice issues at each level of government. coming together in the name of advocacy. Sharon Furlong, one of their members, could unfortunately not attend tonight, but she did provide some great questions for Representative Brennan that I'll be asking later. I'm really glad that you were all able to join us tonight on behalf of your organizations. Next, I'll introduce Conservation Voters of PA's Political and Legislative Director, Katie Bloom.
Thank you so much. I'm going to keep this brief as possible because it sounds like we have a lot to talk about this evening. But many of you know Conservation Voters of Pennsylvania, hopefully through, knowing Tim Hayes's face there on the ground. But we are often known as the political voice for the environment, and we really look to elect and lift up and hold accountable pro-environment elected officials around the state. We really believe in the cycle of accountability. One of those tools is, helping work with partners on the Pennsylvania environmental scorecard and things like that. And it's not just elections, but also, with our partners at PennFuture in particular, working together to do work in Harrisburg. So that's Conservation Voters. But what I really want to do is introduce State Representative Tim Brennan, who is already starting out on his way to be a climate champion. So we're really looking forward to this 2-year session cycle. Representative Brennan, you already heard a little bit through that exchange, some of his background, but he is a member of the Climate Caucus, the Blue-Green Caucus, and other wonderful caucuses like the Delaware River Basin Caucus, on top of his official committee assignments like the Appropriations Committee. Representative Brennan is a lawyer and has done a lot of work, as well as being part of the disciplinary board for the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. He's provided pro bono representation to all kinds of disadvantaged communities, whether it's the LGBTQIA community, low-income homeowners, first responders, and historically disadvantaged groups. Also, you heard a little bit there earlier, when he was a municipal council person, he worked with leaders in other municipalities to do things like save taxpayer funds, and also completed one of the most important projects in his borough's history, which was the Broad Street project, which replaced a brownfield with green space. And it reused a 1930s public building and is really a model of municipal cooperation among the boroughs. So things like that he's already done even before becoming a legislator are really exciting. And we are so happy to have him with us. So Representative Brennan, I am going to give you the floor for a few minutes before Tim goes back and starts with some of our questions.
Yeah, and thank you all for having me here tonight. As Mr. Collins mentioned, I grew up in a place that spent generations not caring about the environment and not protecting the environment. And I remember as distinctly as you can being an 8-year-old kid. My parents had a mom and pop restaurant that I worked in my whole life. And I remember I sat next to an iron worker named John Sweat every day. And I would walk to the bus stop 2 blocks away, and I'd have to cross a creek. I don't know, that's what it was called there. And, it would be dead orange. It would have nothing living in it. We couldn't, even though we were a community that wanted to fish and wanted to do those kind of things, the entire river system was dead. The rocks were red. The sides of the only thing growing, was Japanese knotwood. So it was a community that didn't think about its future economically, environmentally, and on 7 different levels. And it's an area that's struggling today, and there is so much contrast with Bucks County, Central Bucks County. This is one of the most amazing places in the world to live, to raise a family, to enjoy the environment. We have the Delaware River Basin. There's recent paper that I had always said 15 million people get their clean drinking water from the Delaware River Basin, and there was recent studies that said it's even more. We have $3 billion in industry from clean water. We have nearly $1 billion from entertainment on the Delaware. So I have always thought that you find some truth in contrast. You find the hard edges. You see it in art. You see it in so many different other things. And I've certainly seen contrast in how you can deal with environmental challenges and how you could protect the environment from a municipal level on down. So certainly something that I carry with me in my psyche and not just how we treat the environment, but our responsibilities to the next generation as well. So,
oh no, Berkeley.
Oh, Representative Brennan, I think you muted yourself.
I have no clue how I did that. Sorry. I'm certified in law and government, so I've drafted legislation. I've been a community college professor. I taught politics, but I also taught animal law to other attorneys, and I represent working people. I'm certified as a workers' compensation expert. So, historically, as a borough council person, we had a lot of great work that we did in the borough of Doylestown. We were the first municipality in the area to have public charging stations. We required charging stations at major capital projects. We worked on environmental overlays, like when you see the Broad Street corridor coming together, the new buildings that are being built. We did an environmental overlay to save some public space, to require chargers and to have something that interseamed with everything else we were doing to have a bike-friendly community, some aspects to do that. We did energy audits to make sure that we were good stewards of taxpayer money, but also making sure we were using wind and solar, which we ended up doing. And as mentioned in our largest public project, we reused an old building, which is the most environmentally friendly way we could do things. But we're also solar ready on the roof. So I'm sure that the borough has already approached me about electric trucks, and I'm sure at some point I'm going to be looking for grant funding for solar panels on the roof. So I'm really excited to get to do that someday. And the other thing that's just coming online is we eliminated single-use plastics in the borough. So I also live this. I've had a electric vehicle since 2014. I'm on my second one. My first one was amazing. It lasted 8 years, 185,000 miles, and wonderful mileage. So this is also something I'm living. So it's been drinking out of a fire hose as a new representative in Harrisburg. I mean, it's an exceptionally exciting time. We have a majority that has Main Street values. I mean, it took a little bit of time. It was a little bit of a wild road, and people weren't sure how all of this was going to turn out. But we have a majority, and we have a leadership, I believe, that is going to have significant environmental goals, and a majority behind it that will be able to implement it. And that's important. So, we have that type of body in the House. Obviously, we're still going to have to work with the Senate. We have a governor, I think, that also will do good work for the environment, and whose budget proposals seem to reflect that as well. So I'm really optimistic at some of the things we can ultimately do. It's certainly from the folks that I serve with every day. There's a lot of optimism in the things that we hope to get done in Harrisburg for the environment, and also for our constituents and the people that we all care about. So we received environmental training before we even started, which was quite helpful. So I think we're at a very difficult time in human history where we have incredible capacity to do amazing things, to cure diseases, to have so many technological advances, and at the same time we are we are risking so much of our children's future because of the pace and the lack of concern for the next generation. And those are some of the challenges that I think have that are directly on us right now. The last few years, I think we've had some positive developments. We have life in our environmental clause of our PA Constitution, and now we need to fill that void with legislation that actually backs it up. Some of the things I expect to be most concerned about, sustainable development is always something that I've been concerned about. It's been reflected in how I've done business in the borough of Doylestown, to preserve for the next generation, incentivizing clean energy, building an infrastructure for clean energy. And in addition to incentivizing clean energy, removing incentives for carbon-based fuels is something that makes sense. I can't believe we're doing it in the 21st century. It's counterintuitive. So building our infrastructure is for clean energy use is important to me. Always preserving open space is something that I'd like to see. Continuing to keep the Delaware River Basin free of fracking, and to have actual science in our policy statewide. So those are the things that animate me at the core. Some of the as I got into the House, I mean, there's a deluge. I did not expect December 1st you become a state representative, you have your email account, and you get about 2,000 emails with proposed bills. I have literally read every single email. A lot of I have three boxes: the no-brainers, the no's, and the possible bills. And some of the ones that I've co-sponsored so far, I've done. Some of these are not introduced yet. Some of them are introduced. Property tax exemption on solar energy devices to make sure that if people are doing improvements on their house to have solar energy, that they're not having a tax increase because they're doing something that's responsible. Restricting PFAS in firefighting foam. There's a bill that Representative Sterla had proposed that I'm a co-sponsor of. Banning single-use plastics that Representative Briggs had proposed. I'm a co-sponsor on that bill. Solar for PA schools is a great bill to have solar used in our PA schools. That's another one that I'm a co-sponsor of. Some insulation legislation to try and have more energy efficiency. One of the ones that I really liked, when I was knocking on doors, I ran into a house that had a green roof, and I loved it. I actually took pictures of it. I think it ended up on my website. There's a tax credit that Representative Steele had proposed for green roofs, and that's something that I'm a co-sponsor of right now. And another really interesting bill that Representative Daley had proposed, has not yet been introduced, which is conservation corridors to try and link up forests and trying to have more connectivity, and also would help wildlife. One of the ones that is currently on my desk right now too is for electric charging in infrastructure. That's Representative Howard. I think we have some positive things coming down the line too in terms of federal funding for that infrastructure, and those are the things that I have sitting here on my desk in terms of co-sponsors. But I'm here for you guys to answer any questions you might have.
Cool. I appreciate Representative Brennan. Thank you. And just a reminder for everyone, if you have a question for Representative Brennan, please put it in the chat. We're trying to collect them all. So the first one, you kind of touched on it earlier. Many are concerned with what are known as forever chemicals known as PFAS. You mentioned one of the pieces of legislation that's being introduced to address these chemicals.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, PFAS is proven to cause drastic impacts on our health, such as liver damage, immune system damage, birth defects, and a lot of other different symptoms. Could you speak more about the policies or the implementation plans that are there to help protect us in our waterways from
Yeah.
contaminants like PFAS?
Well, I think from the state and federal standpoint, we are the government is reacting and attempting to have manageable standards. We recently had a federal decision that brought it down to 0 or 0.4 parts per trillion, I believe. I think the major hurdle that we're going to have is figuring out how to help municipalities meet the requirements under the new requirements. There's $10 billion in federal funds directed at doing that, but I'm thinking of Doylestown Borough, which will have a $10 million project, and we don't have anywhere near the funding yet federally. And we also have to start looking at it on a statewide basis, because it's something that we're going to have to address with RAC grants or otherwise to try and help municipalities. Because one of the things I don't want to see is losing public-owned water, and those are sort of the issues that we're going to have in front of us. But we definitely have to work on getting these chemicals out of our water, and that seems to be the direction that we're heading in. Now it's up to the state and the federal government to help municipalities make it happen.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And staying on the topic of waterways, Steve said in the chat that, he said, I'm sure many of you have heard about the disastrous latex spill into Otter Creek. And he has a great question. What lessons should we learn from the recent Bristol latex spill that threatened our water supply?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, everyone in Harrisburg is talking about this. And I think what I'm taking from it is there has to be consequences for polluters. And what I'm hearing is that this is essentially deferred maintenance. It's risking a catastrophe for financial gain. The way I understand this happened is that there was corrosion, and that's how this leak happened. And if that's the case, I mean, I think our lesson is that we're immediately on a water source. We have to make sure we're inspecting these facilities, or we're requiring inspection of these facilities, and also making sure there's consequences for the negligent or willful actions that literally risk a catastrophe in Philadelphia. I think we're still going to have some significant environmental effects on the river. I don't think at this point that it's going to completely jeopardize a large portion of the Philadelphia or other water supplies, but this is a lesson, and if we don't see that, then we're not doing our work.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And you also touched on this earlier, but I got brought up again. Doylestown had just passed, as you know, a single-use plastic ban that begins this summer. And one of our co-sponsors, Sharon, would like to know, how do you and your office plan on supporting a smooth transition in this process for the entire Doylestown community?
Well, we're definitely supportive. I was on council through the many years that we were preempted. This is something that we'd hope to see for a long time, and we've had a very receptive community to these changes. I spoke to the borough manager, and there hasn't been a single peep of a complaint, and that usually registers that you have a happy community. I think this is a socially conscious area that wants to do the right thing and wants to act in a socially responsible manner. And I'm certainly supportive of the decisions being made to do that, and working to do the same on a statewide level.
I appreciate that answer. Thank you. Sharon would also like to know if you are aware that a Superfund site still exists in the Doylestown area. I believe it's the ChemFab site. Recently in 2021, after years of doing nothing, the EPA began construction of a water treatment plant to begin cleaning up the toxic groundwater situation. And as far as Sharon knows, it isn't finished with the construction phase. So she wants to know what can you and your office do to bring info about this long neglected site to all of us? Because the more we know, the more we can monitor and pressure the government about finally attending to this nasty situation.
Well, the original pollution there was, I was surprised to hear, is essentially heavy metals, liquefied heavy metals that actually seep through to an aquifer. It is going to take hundreds of years to remedy. It is online at this point, and it is doing the work that it's intended to do. It's drawing water out and treating it and putting it back in, but it is going to be years and years and years before there's anything like progress at that site. I believe the plant came online a few months ago, it is operational at this point, and it is just doing the work that it's going to be doing for a very, very long time.
Yeah, so I want to stay on the topic of that ChemFab site in Doylestown. There are many Superfund sites like that across the Commonwealth that disproportionately affect environmental justice communities. So my question personally is, what will you do to advance equitable legislation for environmental justice communities in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I sat through education hearings where I'm hearing about lead and asbestos in Pennsylvania schools. Philadelphia has some very, very difficult circumstances in terms of what they're putting their kids through, schools that are dangerous. And I think that's one of the areas that I'd like to see us make some progress to. We're talking about protecting our kids. We're talking about kids going to school. That's one of the areas that I would love to see us make progress in. And there's so many places across the state, though, that desperately need help. The county where I grew up is I looked the other day, and Bucks, and I talked about contrast. The property values in Bucks County are second highest in the state, and the property value in that county is about $50,000 a median household. So I think it is actually the lowest. So you see areas like that where the entire natural system has been gutted. It honestly, I've lived through it. I've seen, I've known people, I watched them. It destroys a person's psyche when you have literally everything. You have coal mounds that are shadowing everything around you. You have a river running through your town that's dead, and it has to have a psychological effect. So some of those areas that whatever we can do, I hope we're doing the most for our money and for our kids, and wherever we can do that most improvement, we have to. But those are some of the areas that immediately come to mind to me.
Perfect. Thank you. So Diane asked in the chat, with the Republicans in control of the Senate, what are the plans to work with them to get some of the more important legislation passed?
I trust our leadership. One of the things I found is that there are 102 now 101 Democrats that are really in lockstep right now. There is very little divergence. I think we're all conscious that it's a very narrow majority, and that we have to do our best to continue to be able to make policy. But I think there are things that we will be able to get done. We have priorities, and I think it's. They say the sausage making of legislation. It is really that. The House will set its priorities and will have to negotiate with the Republican Senate to get anything done. And I think we have very competent leadership that'll be able to do that. There's a working relationship. We've gone through the budget, 2 weeks of hearings right now, in a really relative good good conversation. It hasn't there hasn't been discord anyway. So I think that there's a possibility of getting things done. You know, it may not be moving mountains, but I think we will be able to get incremental change this year.
Oh, perfect, thank you. So Steve noted in the chat that some of the benefits of the Inflation Reduction Act, including incentives for solar panels, electric vehicles. Are there ways that your office can help to make sure that these federal funds get into the district and the county?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. Some of my favorite parts about it, I think it's like a $10,000. There's a $10,000 either grant or tax credit or something for solar use. I mean, it's wonderful. I think we could probably be an information source for those kind of things when people are possibly have something in the office, or certainly whenever somebody's contacting us about it. But there's also a lot of funding for infrastructure improvements as well for electric vehicles, those kind of things, which we're starting to consider how to do a real build up there as well. So I'm sure my office could be an information point for those issues.
Perfect. So the next question is from Ardid. She said earlier you mentioned several of the bills that you're most excited about and have co-sponsored. She would like to know what environmental bill or issue has the most attention of the House Democratic Caucus.
I think we're all interested in looking at clean energy. I think we're going to have to come across the Senate and try and figure out where we really can get things done. One of the things I think if there are clean building solutions, those are the things I think we're most likely to get done. Infrastructure type legislation. I mean, with a 1-vote majority and a Republican Senate, I think the things that looking at the dynamics of Pennsylvania right now, the things that benefit the environment and labor are probably going to be the things that rise to the top in terms of ease of negotiation with the Senate. That's just my reading of the tea leaves. Knowing the politics of it all, so anything with building out infrastructure, clean infrastructure, those are the things I think we have the best bet to advance on. I can tell you one of the things that I support that the Republicans most oppose is RGGI, because in our DEP hearing, I think literally every Republican question was on RGGI. So.
Awesome, thank you. So Shannon would like to know if you are familiar with the incentives for zero energy buildings via passive house certifications and energy modeling through MassSave and the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. If so, would you support implementing them in Pennsylvania?
So, like energy standards, I have to say I'm not exactly familiar with that particular bill, but some of the things that I've co-sponsored are designed for more efficiency, for more energy efficiency, for audits, and for building standards that are more energy efficient. I think that's just sort of it's a common sense approach. I mean, I'm living in a 21st century where the decisions we make today affect my kid's life, and if we don't change our culture, and that includes building standards, we have so many risks on the horizon, so many absolutely positively terrifying risks on the horizon. So I look at those types of bills as sort of the cultural change that we need. We certainly did it in Doylestown, so I'm certainly open to those kind of concepts.
Perfect, thank you. So, we talked a lot about water tonight, whether with, the Bristol chemical spill, PFAS pollution, or the need to keep our water public. And Helen raised an interesting solution, and I was wondering if we should start looking at embracing a circular water economy, as several cities in the Netherlands are doing. Are you familiar with that, and
Yeah.
do you support it? If not, she says the World Economic Forum actually has a great article on it. But are you familiar with that, and would you support it?
Circular water economy. Maybe just get a quick. I actually am not, but maybe if you quick conceptual.
Yeah. So the definition, it's, water aims to maximize value derived from water processes and practices, and as a result, the recovery of wastewater and renewable water resources is used to offset the exploitation and impact of abstracting new water resources.
I mean, certainly worth looking at. Certainly, that's something I'd read up on.
Yeah, definitely. We'll definitely forward all this information to you, so you can definitely look into that a little bit more, because that sounds really interesting. Yeah, definitely. So the next question from Katie actually is, what is the one environmental issue you think could be a win in this legislature, especially in a bipartisan fashion?
One thing that I think could be a win in this environment. Again, I think I have to go back to the to infrastructure build out, clean infrastructure. Solar is something I think we have a chance at moving forward, something in this Senate. I'll tell you one of the things that, as I was preparing for this, I didn't see a bill cross my email yet on the alternative energy portfolio standards. I don't know if anything's been proposed yet. And if there hasn't been, that's something I'd certainly look into doing. I see Katie nodding.
We will reach out. There is at least one bill in the Senate now. We'll be in touch.
Yeah, no, I looked at that. I'm like, there doesn't appear to be anything in the House, and that is something I'd definitely be interested in moving. I certainly, and if I'm not the proper vehicle to find the right vehicle, but that's I was surprised that we don't have anything in the House yet on that. And do we in the Senate? Is that I think it's Republican. No Republican on it.
Off the top of my head, it is actually from Senator Street has one of them. A prior bill had been introduced in the prior session with Senator Haywood and Senator Laughlin, a bipartisan bill. There's still some work being done on that, and we know that Shapiro's administration is interested in it. So we expect more to come, and I will make sure you're looped into that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And honestly, even if we have an incremental increase, it's a huge benefit with an economy with 13 million people. So an incremental, I hope we get more, but I mean, it's a great place to look at. And I mean, it's such our current levels are so old and low, and our advancements have become so great that it seems like it should be an area that we, should be able to move. I mean, I am a first-year legislator though, so my hope abounds, but it seems like something we should be able to move.
Awesome, thank you. So Tamar raised a critically important question about housing, and specifically affordable housing. We at CVPA and other partners know that things like conserving land is important, but so is also ensuring that we have affordable housing for all. And they raised up a key resource for how to ensure we're funneling subsidies into the passive house standard, which would help to build sustainable housing. So would you like to say a few words about your thoughts on affordable housing, which intersects with creating a just environment?
Yeah, so I mean, trying to, I look at it in terms of how, like, I've struggled with it as a councilperson in Doylestown. On the one hand, I come from a borough where if we lower our standards of what people expect out of a building, then the town is in with pitchforks. You increase density. And again, you're back with pitchforks. So, we've always sort of dealt with that in terms of how to have more units so that there'd be more affordability. In terms of affordability, I've been looking into some programs for first-time homeowners and those kind of things, but it's a difficult nut to crack, especially for this area where, like I said at the very beginning, our property values right now are or the median cost of housing here is second in the entire state, and that makes it very difficult for. And you know, we have you know, such a sprawling area. You know, you want to preserve the open space as best as you can, but it's become increasingly difficult for kids to stay in the area where they grew up, and certainly something that we need to look at. And you know, for me as a local official, it's always been balancing that. You know, maybe you increase density a little bit, and you know, it preserves open space. You look at creative ideas in your zoning, like we did overlays and in the borough to try and have incentives for park space. We incentivize density for environmental concessions. Basically, we allowed more density. Helped the developers do some of the things that we wanted, like 2 acres or something of an acre or 2 acres of park space that's dedicated to the public in a project, or charging stations, those kind of things. That's you know, but it's a difficult question. Something I know that I, you know, having been elected here, that it's something I have to study and try and find solutions for.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So we're coming up at the end of the event, so this will be our last question. How can your constituents help continue to support environmental protection here in Bucks County and beyond?
I mean, being active citizens. You know, I was always encouraged when we saw a full crowd at a council meeting. I am still a person that reads the emails that come into my office. I personally respond to very large amount of them. I was driving home from Harrisburg today. I'm losing track of days. Calling constituents. So I think you know, having an educated, articulate, passionate citizenry is like the number one thing we can have for sensible government. They're you know, and I think this area has shown to be that type of citizenry, you know, in the various smaller municipalities that I've seen with active citizenship. And you know, I still honestly believe there's nothing wrong with our country that you can't fix with what's right with it. And you know, having that sense of civic commitment, civic responsibility, and you know, also a stewardship. You know, I mean, people sitting in this room aren't only concerned about themselves, they're concerned about their neighbors, and they're concerned about the next generation. And, you know, we have to foster that. And, you know, it starts with being active citizens and staying engaged, and forcing me and any of my colleagues who much easier task, and, you know, working to find better alternatives or to on the other side, and pushing them to have a better perspective and what they want for our future and our kids' future.
Great. Thanks so much, Representative Brennan. Well, this has been absolutely amazing. And, you know, I want to give you a huge thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to join us here tonight. And I also want to thank all of you in the audience for attending tonight, you know, from constituents to countywide environmental leaders. And I also want to again thank our amazing co-sponsors, PennFuture, PennEnvironment, Delaware Canal 21, Bucks County Audubon, Primrose Creek Watershed Association, Spring Creek Farm, and Bucks Environmental Action for lending your support to this event and for having organization representatives be in attendance. Also, we're rounding out our Bucks County Legislator Meet and Greet series with State Senator Steve Sanacero of the 10th Senate District. We'll be hosting an in-person event with him on Monday, April 17th at 6 p.m. at La Stalla Restaurant in Newtown. So we really hope you can make it out. And, you know, I really look forward to working with all of you to make the 29th District and the entire Commonwealth more sustainable. And just one more note, keep an eye on your inbox for the recording of this event and further information on how to protect the environment. You know, there's certainly a lot going on between all of our different organizations and our work in Harrisburg. So we want to thank you all for your dedication and hope we can continue to lift up environmental voices here in Bucks County. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a great night.
Thank you all.